onto the topic about being witnessed. And I'm like, okay, I do believe I've got healing abilities. But then we said that so does everybody. And then we said that you've got to be open to healing. Think about when you have therapy with somebody, you're talking out loud. Now, I think that you can do your own therapy in your head.
I studied performance. I studied dance performance in school. And we did a lot of work around like audience. And I was dancing out in my yard the other day outside. And I'm going to be creating a solo show at some point. It's already kind of spurring inside me, but it's going to start physically. But I was rehearsing outside in my yard, and I was imagining being witnessed.
What does the witnessing do?
Focus. It creates focus. A lot of people don't have the capability to focus. They don't have a connection with their higher self, with their soul, with their inner essence. A lot of people don't have access to that resource.
I last did a podcast with you in the middle of London in front of thousands of people, and what we were doing is contact improv on the grass. And for people that don't know what that is, it's basically touching another human being, moving around them, moving your hands in the air, jumping over them, flipping over them, rolling over them, lying on them, having your body touching at all times. You put the weight on yourself and they put the weight on you, and you basically just flow like a wave where you're touching, connected, but then you're moving to the next gap, let's just say. And it was so enjoyable just being in that little bubble that you forget that you're in the middle of London and there's loads of people looking at you. And because I didn't look around, I never consciously saw people looking at us. But because I know what humans are like, we would have standed out like a sore thumb, and people would have been thinking, what the fuck are they doing? And then that leads on to the point of people may judge, but then actually what they really want to be able to do is do it themselves. And they go from judging why they're doing that to, oh, I wish I had the confidence to do that. And so there is an enormous power with being yourself and staying true to who you are, knowing that others will see that, and it will hopefully allow them to find themselves and do the things that make them feel good despite other people judging them.
Yeah, I think that people have a natural curiosity towards things that they don't know. And so I'm sure there were loads of people like looking, trying not to look, wondering, kind of maybe a mixture of like repulse attract. So yeah, I'm glad we provided that inspiration and planted seeds in lots of people's awareness about like what's possible and ways of relating with each other and just ways of being. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with you that day. I remember it was really sunny and we spent like 5 hours in the sun or something. Got a lot of vitamin D, and yeah, just overall great bonding sesh. I'm in a really different place of my life right now. Different but same, because you know I'm the common factor in the whole thing. I am now in Quebec, Canada, in a small town called Wakefield, and this is where my dad and my stepmom live, and also my stepmom's family. So I'm normally the last 5 years I've been in Hawaii, but right now I'm choosing to ground back into Canada, because I was living in Montreal, Quebec, before Hawaii. And yeah, it's really different from London in that it's a small town. London was like way too overstimulating for me. But got to meet awesome people like you and other beautiful folks that I met there. So grateful for the experience, but happy to be closer to nature and closer to my personal preference of pace, which is like slow down and lots of spaciousness and presence in all of that. So yeah.
So I actually want to say a big thank you to you, because when we were in Wagamama's eating food, you did this thing to me, whatever you did. I had my eyes closed, you had your eyes closed, you were scanning my body, and whatever you were doing, the download you got was that I need to take pieces of information and package them up and narrow them and deliver them. So when I do a podcast, I'm just talking about everything and anything, whatever comes to my mind, I just talk about it, which is great. But what you said is that although that is great, you've got a lot of information to give. So rather than just sort of link each thing to the next, what you can do is start something, talk about it and finish it. Start something, talk about it and finish it. And I have actively and consciously, since that conversation, changed how I podcast, where I am almost reading a chapter in a book, where I am finishing the chapter and not just going off on a tangent, because that's great. But in terms of teaching, it's better to have something you're talking about, wrap it up, and then start something else, rather than just talk about something, link it, talk about it, link it, come back, go back. And that's all because of you specifically saying that. And remember, I said that that's something that I'm actively becoming aware of, because I listen to like Stephen Bartlett, and he wraps things up before he starts the next. And that is, everyone's got a different style, but you told me what I needed to hear. I took action immediately, and here I am.
Amazing. Wow. That was a great reminder of what our connection was like at that time. That's awesome.
People come into your life and they give you the things and messages that you need at that time, and they can be life-changing if they are said in the right way for the right reasons, and the other person is expecting or looking out for a sign.
Yeah, exactly. And when I hear you say expecting or looking out for a sign, it's like the person has to be open to receiving, meaning that some part of them is like has already been tracking this message. Some part of them is aware that there's a stream in them that wants to evolve in this direction. What I pick up on is what's already like what's at the tip, what's like already like the momentum's already going this way, and I'm just like, hey, look, that momentum's already happening, so I'm just kind of bringing my sensitivity into the picture and relaying what I am perceiving. So you clearly already had that awareness and that momentum towards that way of evolving your podcasts and probably your general way of being in life. Because as I'm sure, like the way you evolve in your art evolves your everyday self, right? So, yeah. And I love gifting that to people. I love just when they're available, because I find a lot of people, like, you have to pick your moments, right? And we were really, both of us were so open that day, and I feel like we're both really open in general to feedback, and like we want to know. I want to know. I feel like you also want to know more. We just want to know. We're so curious. It's like there's these personalities, the play personalities that I know about from this guy who wrote about play, and I feel like both of our top threes is in one of our one of the play personalities that is in both of our top threes would be explorer. So like, yeah, I really appreciate that about you. And yeah, what themes are you noticing? I'm curious what themes you're tracking already in our conversation so that we can stay on track.
Well, what's coming to me is that you come across people not very often that really do have a profound impact on your life and change your life in such massive ways. Another thing that I learned from that day was when I did Reiki on you, and I did something with my thumb where I had a bit of mud on my thumb and I flicked it off. And then you said, "Oh, you've just released something." And I'm like, "I just flicked some mud off my thumb. What are you on about?" And then we got onto the topic about being witnessed. And I'm like, okay, I do believe I've got healing abilities. But then we said that so does everybody. And then we said that you've got to be open to healing. The other person who's receiving it has got to be open so they can block it and they can be open to receiving it. And the other person who's doing it can do it whether they believe they can or not. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. It's everything, right? And you need all the variables, or none of the variables might work. And so it was the art of being witnessed. So this thing about when you have therapy with somebody, you're talking out loud. Now, I think that you can do your own therapy in your head. You can say the same thing you would speak to a therapist about in your head, and you essentially get to the same place. But there is a power with being witnessed, another physical human being entity, acknowledging that, looking in your eyes and hearing that, seeing the body language, their eyes twitching, their mouth moving, their eyes squinting as they're listening to you. They are acknowledging what you're saying. Energy is coming off them and you're picking up on the energy field. There is an electrical current that is being circulated. Whereas if you just do it in yourself, the current's going around and it's not being released, even though you've got the answers. So the thing about being witnessed is the crucial thing about doing the Reiki on you, which anyone could do, or you could do it yourself by believing that essentially my hands are there, and then you open your eyes and no one's there. You're doing it yourself, but it's the art of believing you are being witnessed. The same as if a tennis player is playing tennis and there's an audience, they're up their game. If you're being watched by somebody, you tend to perform better. So what is it about that? And then I will translate to, when I play squash by myself, if I believe someone is watching me, my game is increased by 2. If I look around and they're not there, my energy goes back down. But if they are there watching me, I increase my game by 2. So I can create the witnessing myself, even if no one's there, the same as if they are there, which basically means that we are doing all the work ourselves based on our own belief system, and the outside third person has no relevance, essentially. Thoughts?
Thank you for all that.
My pleasure.
So I hear you saying that you do notice a difference. I hear you saying 2 things. You do notice a difference when there's a physicalized third party witnessing versus just being in your own head or your own company doing the healing. And I also hear you saying that you personally, and maybe like you feel like anyone can reproduce that sensation of being witnessed. Yeah, I mean, the last sentence that you said is what got me like, it was like, oh, I got a little like tightness in my body. I was like, oh. I think you said essentially, did you say we don't need the witness or something? Do you remember?
Yeah, we don't need to see with our eyes somebody looking at us. With just the belief that they are is enough to create that quantum field where our cells react to being witnessed. Like we can witness our own cells and they
Oh,
will respond the same as if someone's actually witnessing us.
oh, I'm glad you said that again because I feel very differently when you just repeated that in that way. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the tightness that came up was like, I feel sad when I hear people say that they don't need other humans or they don't need people, but I don't think that's what you were saying, but
No,
it's something that came up in me when I heard that. I totally agree with like the quantum level of being witnessed and being able to reproduce that. I think it takes some time. I think it takes a lot of repetition and growth in yourself through meditation and different practices to be able to do that in a very real way. And yeah, just to say more about what I was feeling is like, I think that logic is often used by kind of material. Whoa, okay, it's big. And I just want to kind of say it and let it sit and see if I still agree, but or see what else wants to come. But I feel like that same logic like can be used to say, I don't need other people and I don't need, it's like I don't need anything. It's like I can be just like a solo being and I, so that same logic I feel like can be usurped for like, yeah, just I like anything, it can be used in a way that doesn't serve the whole. Yeah. Because I guess I sense and I want to come back to what you were saying because I want to keep going on that stream, but I also just want to say like, I just witness this wound in people that's like, oh, I can reproduce, like I don't need other people. I don't need to be in community, or I don't need to have friends, or I don't need to, yeah, create like the sort of individualistic sense of being. But yeah, and then coming back to what you were saying, I really love this topic because I studied performance. I studied dance performance in school, and we did a lot of work around like audience and performer, which is kind of the same as like, it is being witnessed and how that changes what you do. And the last thing I'll say is I was dancing out in my yard the other day outside, and I'm going to be creating a solo show at some point. It's already kind of spurring inside me, but it's going to start physically once I find a studio space to rehearse. But I was rehearsing outside in my yard, and I was imagining being witnessed, and it gave me like it gave me energy that fueled being at my peak performance, like being like expressing from my deepest intelligence and wisdom and like prowess in my body. And it feels so good to do that. Like it just feels so good. I was also at Ecstatic Dance here, which is totally different than London or Hawaii. It was like 10 people in a room. No DJ, just a woman with a playlist. But it was beautiful. It was like, it was so intimate, and I got to like, it wasn't, yeah, it was just different. But anyway, in that space as well, because there were so few people there, I knew that, and because I was able to take up a lot of space and move, and because it wasn't like really sexy music like a lot of other ecstatic dances are, I find I just got to be in this like innocent weirdness that I really love to be in. And like, just I don't know how to explain, like just exploring different, almost like Buto, like just different positions of the body and channeling different energies that are coming through. And I felt held by the container of like these, 10 other people watching me as well. So, and in both cases, I was able to hold that same energy where I was physically being witnessed and where you could say I was being witnessed by the trees and God and like the earth, so there's that too.
So really so when I do a static dance, right, I can close my eyes and I'm just feeling the music and I forget that there's fucking 300 people there watching me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing all these weird shapes and literally I could be in my bedroom and I'd still feel exactly the same. And the fact that there's 300 people there looking at me suddenly becomes absolutely irrelevant because I'm controlling my inner world. But then if you flip it, if I was just focusing on these people looking at me and I was a nervous person, then I might not be able to flow the same way as if I was in my bedroom. So
right.
What's the difference between them actually looking at me when my eyes are closed versus them not being there, me in my bedroom feeling the same thing? It's me observing myself, observing them.
Yeah.
So the witness thing is essentially a belief system that people think that they would need in order to activate a certain state. For example, when I was doing the Reiki on you, I could have walked off and then I go get an ice cream and then I come back and I'm like, how was that? And you're like, oh, that felt amazing. You've just done some healing on me. That's great.
To be honest, I definitely would have known if you were there or not. But I get what you're going.
but the point is that if you were just in that flow, right, believing that I was there, then the outcome would have been the same as if I was there. So what does that mean? It means that you created the state within yourself, meaning that we don't necessarily need to have the third person there to do the work. We're doing the work ourselves. The same as if you see a black cat or you walk across 3 drains or you go under a ladder, you've activated that thought process of bad luck. Well, you didn't need to go under the drains or walk across the drains to activate bad luck. You could just literally see a black feather and activate the bad luck. But then you realize that that's actually a white feather that somebody sprayed black. So it's not actually a black feather, but yet you've created that bad luck by simply telling yourself that black feather is going to create bad luck. So again, it goes back to, can we create the same state without anybody? And is the fact that we think we need to be witnessed simply just, I can't do it unless someone else is there, because we are tribal people and we are part of communities and we ideally want to do things together. So we almost like wait for someone else to come along with us to help us rather than do it ourselves. Because how many times do you, when you're out and about with friends, there's no real leader sometimes. You just like floating and then it takes like half an hour to get anywhere because you're like just following each other. There is a power with going with somebody and being with people versus doing it by yourself. And you were saying a minute ago, you had a problem with saying that, are we supposed to do things by ourselves? Because then it says we don't need friends and we don't need people, which we do. But the main thing is the witness thing. We want to be witnessed. So therefore we are reacting on the fact that we are being witnessed. Like I am dancing, thinking people are watching me, and I'm just being like 10 times better. But we can also create that same state within. So is it simply a choice to be witnessed, or is actually being witnessed changing the energy field where without it, we are actually different? Or is it both? And it's probably both.
It's definitely both. I mean, like, I just keep receiving that, like, and I'm just feeling into how to articulate this. Yes, if you've honed the skills of creating a feeling of being witnessed by love, by source, by God, by your best friend, by your lover, by the earth, and you can tune into that by your higher self, by your heart. And you can genuinely tune into that, and that generates what you need in that moment. Then that's beautiful, and that is what is working. And I would say equally, I would invite those who can do that to also engage in the being witnessed part, because for me, that's equally beautiful. And like one of my main streams of one of the main things that I value is beauty, is like the beauty of this experience. It's beautiful to heal by yourself, and it's beautiful to heal with others. So why not allow ourselves to do both? And I want to hear again what your core question is about this. Is it about need and necessity, or is it about preference? Or
Well, what's coming to my mind is that my best friend was going through a twin flame experience, and he called me up every day and spoke to me for like an hour, and I just listened to him. So I was witnessing him. And when I went through my twin flame experience, no one even knew I had a twin flame. I did it all on my own, in my head, by me. He was speaking to all of his friends, getting advice from each person, calling up each person, talking and talking and talking. So we've got one hand, him needing these people and community and being witnessed by physical people. And then you had on the other hand myself, which is I did it all in my head. Now, we both got to the same outcome and destination, which is working out the lessons that this person is teaching us, evolving, and getting to the point where we are more whole, which is the whole point of a twin flame, to make us more whole. We got to the same place. Now, I didn't have anybody. He needed somebody. He said to me, I don't know how you did this by yourself, because I am absolutely going through the worst part of my life right now. What I'm feeling is worse than like death of a loved one, because essentially you're losing your soul and it's been squeezed out so all the demons can release, and then you are being reborn again, right? Mm-hmm. So the pain, emotional pain that you're going through is excruciating. And I did it by myself, and he did it with other people, and he couldn't work out how I was able to do it by myself. So I think what I'm trying to understand is I'm no different to anybody else, but there is obviously two states of people: somebody who can activate that witnessing without being witnessed, and people who can't until they are witnessed. And I think because I am in that part of being able to witness myself and get the same results as somebody who is being witnessed, I'm trying to understand the opposite, even though I'm coming from the opposite. I'm coming from the opposite to what majority of people have come from. I want to understand that. I do understand that. But because I'm from the opposite side of the fence, I am understanding it from both ways, even though most people are on the I need to be witnessed to activate the feeling, even I had the ability and have the ability to activate it myself. And I do agree that we need people versus not. But then I think, would I do it by myself? I'd like to think that I would like to have people around me to help me. All the bullying, all the trauma, all my awakening was all by myself in my head. I didn't have anybody. Would I have wanted little Oliver to have people? Yeah. Even if I get to the same outcome and same place? Yeah, probably. But yeah, that's what's coming to me.
So you're curious about people who prefer and what need to be witnessed in order to move through challenging situations, and have a wondering about, like, if you maybe even have that preference slightly, or yeah, that's what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
Well, it's the whole point of this was about how I said people come into your life and they do something, say something that has a profound effect. And one of the things that you said is the witnessing thing, the fact that you healed yourself by the fact that I was there witnessing you, and that if I wasn't there, you could create the witnessing in your mind. So it's that what the witnessing does. What does the witness activating? Yeah. What does the witnessing do?
I'm sorry, I need to come in now because it's coming in. Focus. It creates focus. A lot of people don't have the capability to focus, right? They don't practice meditation. So they don't have a connection with their higher self, with their soul, with their inner essence, whatever you want to call it, which is the closest witness, like the intermediary. It's like the awareness, your awareness. I mean, if you get into the metaphysics of it, it gets crazy. But so I'll just say higher self. Because yeah, a lot of people don't have access to that resource.
The focus resource.
Focusing, being able to hear their inner voice, slow down, being able to parse it out. A lot of people are just on loop, right? Oh, they haven't learned to slow down and hear the individual words. You know, maybe like journaling also helps with this, parsing through the different parts of us, the different inner children, inner teenagers, victim aspect, hero aspect, villain aspect, all of these parts of us that are having conversations constantly, constellating in different configurations within us. Usually in most people, it's like a mash, it's like a soup, and they don't have access to finding the individual parts or streams of consciousness. You and I have that. That's why we can recreate the witness, or that's why we can access the witness, which is our soul, our higher self, our essence. And do the healing within. For your friend, for most people, they need to have that real-time human ear, heart, presence, to be a conduit for them to hear their words out loud, one at a time, right? They can hear their own thoughts clearly, out loud. Okay, you have something?
Yeah, so what came to me is it's almost like when I talk, people say it's like reading a book, because I've done so much thinking and analyzing that I've already worked out a broad amount of wisdom and information, almost like having cheese in a cheese cellar. I've got all the cheese there that I need. So when I go in the cellar, I can pick out the cheese, blue cheese, cheddar cheese. So when I talk, I'm not talking about stuff that I'm working out in real time. I've already worked it out. So it can come out because I've already worked it out. So what came to me is that most people have got a lot of noise in their head. Yeah. We have control over our voice. We meditate. We choose to think when we need to. And there's no constant dialogue commentator non-stop. For the majority of people, they've got all these voices, all these commentators, all these thoughts, all these thinking stuff. And it's just splurting in and out with no order, no organization. It's just blah, 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 blah. So for me trying to work out something, I've got the information. So I can be like, why is that person looking at me? He's looking at you because you've got pink socks on and Crocs. What's that? Why is that a problem? Because society doesn't wear pink Crocs and pink socks. Oh, why is that? Because most people are sheep and they follow. Why is that? That's just because most people follow what the other person is doing in the tribe. Why is that? Because there's one leader and the rest follow. Why is that? Because without a leader, we're lost. Okay, great. Most people they can't create the dialogue, the clarity of a storybook in their mind. So therefore, when they speak out loud, they are seeing me following what they are saying, which confirms that what they are saying makes sense. And it gives them the ability to merge and move and change what they are saying until it makes sense for the person listening, which means it must make sense for them. Because how do you know something makes sense unless somebody's confirming it back to you? If I'm talking to you and I'm watching you following me and you're screwing your face up like, Oliver, I don't know what the fuck you're on about, right? That means I don't know what the fuck I'm on about either, right? So by me rewording what I'm saying so you understand, you're like, oh, that makes sense. Which technically means if it makes sense for you, it makes sense for me. Because how will it make sense for you if it doesn't make sense for me? So if people are saying the same, call it nonsense in their head, and it doesn't make sense to them, it will not make sense to you. But no one can confirm or acknowledge that I understand that makes sense because it's in their head. It's just this gobbledygook going around. So they never quite get anywhere. No one's witnessing them. No one's saying that makes perfect sense. No one's saying that. Whereas if you say it out loud and you say, oh, that makes absolute sense. Or you might be like, what are you on about? Which means I can then go in my head, think about it more, analyze it more, get an answer which actually makes sense, and then attempt to speak it out loud. And then if it does make sense, you should understand it. So the witnessing thing out loud is the fact that people can't make sense of their own dialogue, voice, information. They've not got the full spectrum of information. They've not got the full cellar of different cheeses from blue to cheddar to halloumi cheese. Okay. They've only got a bit of cheddar. Okay. So that's why it's powerful for people to speak out loud, because they get confirmation that it makes sense. If they just go over it in their head, they don't know, it might not make sense. They're hearing this voice and dialogue, but unless they write it down, it might not make sense. It might just be like reading a book and then sort of scribbling out the middle part and then continuing off halfway down the page. You're sort of reading the first part and then you just jump to like the third part and you're like, I don't understand. Like, we're missing a huge chunk here. Speaking out loud allows me to watch you say, Oliver, you've missed half the book. Oh, and then I'll go inside and find out where the middle section was. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Hallelujah.
What I'm hearing to contribute is we've been talking a lot about thoughts, so the mental sphere. Little bit about emotions, but mostly I feel like our conversation in general has been in the mental sphere. So I'm going to drop us down to the heart and bring us into the emotional and spiritual meeting place and say that to be witnessed is also to connect hearts, to connect souls, which is a magnificent, which can be a magnificent experience. And I would say cannot be recreated just alone.
Absolutely spot on. That could just be the answer. It's that heart connection with being witnessed versus the brain connection in your head with yourself. I mean, if that is the answer, that is the most simplest fucking answer. That's a great answer. Yeah.
I mean, we can connect to, and I love, for example, I can connect my heart to the heart of the earth, connect my womb to the womb of the earth, connect my heart to the heart of the universe, to the heart of source, God, Great Spirit. But a human heart is just different. It's just a different energy because it's in a body. And God in a body, a soul in a body, has a very particular resonance or music that it's making. So I actually think we're creating, like, the thing that we're doing when we're alone is powerful, but it's completely different. It's powerful and it's useful, and we can recreate the witness, but it's a completely different musical musical score than being with another human being who has a heart, who has bones, who has a nervous system, who has little cells vibrating in all sorts of different ways. And yeah, that's what I want to bring in.
All right, well, we'll do another episode now, so we'll continue off on the next one. Anything on a promote and plug before we stop and start the next one?
Promote or plug? Oh my gosh. I don't really have anything to promote or plug, except for I do offer one-on-one sessions. And I use sound healing, you know, also just witnessing, like we're talking about, using my heart, using my soul, using my body. I help people move through stuckness. I help people move into their creativity, into self-love. And I also help especially women open their voice. So.
Okay. And if you had one day left to live, what is the one thing that you would tell the rest of the world?
Have fun. Don't take life so seriously. Just relax and look at the sun and drink the sunlight into your eyes.
Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, please remember to subscribe, turn the bell notifications on, like the episode, and comment below. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's YesKingOliver. Take a look at the other videos to your side. And if you just want to listen to this podcast, you can do so on Apple and Spotify and most other platforms by going to talkwitholiver.com.